Hello, my name is Kim Bruneschultz, U alumni and former student athlete with the University of Utah Women's Gymnastics Program. I graduated from the U about 3 years with 3 different degrees, including my doctorate most recently in 2015. And for the next 2 years, I will be the president of the U Alumni Board of Governors. I would like to thank the Office of Alumni Relations, the Salt Lake City Alumni Club, and University of Utah Athletics today for the event. Before I introduce our speaker, a few housekeeping items for our viewers. Please feel free to use the YouTube chat function to share any questions or comments that you might have for us or our speaker during this presentation. And we're really fortunate enough to have so many questions come in from viewers during the registration, and we'll be trying to address those questions first. And if we have time, we'll try and add a few extra questions. And so I would encourage anybody to enter those questions into the chat function. And now, without further ado, I will introduce our speaker for today's event, the U's Athletic Director, Mark Harlan. Mark was named the Director of Athletics at the University of Utah in June of 2018. A veteran administrator with Pac-12 ties, Harlan brought more than 20 years of intercollegiate athletic experience at 5 universities to Salt Lake City, including 4 previous years as the Director of Athletics at the University of South Florida. Since arriving at Utah, Harlan has overseen a significant success in competition, in the classroom, and in our community, as well as substantial fundraising success to improve the student-athlete experience, including a record number of donors within our own Crimson Club. In the last few months, Mark has been working with U Athletics and the entire U community to navigate through the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome, Mark. We are very excited to get an update on kind of the spring and summer, how it looked for your student athletes and within U Athletics. Mark, take it away.
Well, thank you, Kim. Great to see you virtually. It's always an honor when the new president of the Alumni Association is one of our own. Great gymnast that you were, and appreciate you asking me to join this group, and also appreciate the Alumni Association for inviting me here today. So honored to have a chance to update all of you that have joined us today about what's happening here at Utah Athletics. I think what we're going to do is we're going to look back a little bit, and then of course we'll look forward. But before I start that, I do want to give my best to everybody that's on this YouTube channel and this event. You know, we're going to talk a lot about athletes and staff and things going on here and some of the challenges, but I know all of you have so many challenges that you're dealing with in your own individual way within your family. So thinking about all of you and hope that you're doing okay and that everyone's staying safe. Well, you know, if you look at this slide that is up here now, this is the slide that kind of grounds me on a daily basis. This is the young people that we're so fortunate to be around and to lead and to watch them grow. This picture was taken almost a year ago at our Welcome Back barbecue. You can see it's right there on our softball field, and that's all our kids. That's 500 plus strong that came out last year to begin the 2019-20 season. And frankly, it just makes me smile. And I think, of course, all the things that have happened between now and then, but that's our group. I want to talk a little bit about what they did last year. And the most important thing, because after all, we're at a university and academics and graduation is the most important thing. I want to talk a little bit about what this group was able to do last spring academically. So we can look at the next slide. That is something that we're really, really proud of. So if you consider for a moment, those of you that are dealing with young people in your families that are going through the academic experience right now, we all just weren't sure how this was going to work. You know, in the case of student athletes, you know, halfway through the semester, not only in some cases where their sports discontinued, but I tell you what wasn't discontinued was academics. The president did an unbelievable job of putting everything online. And these were the marks that our student athletes were able to work with. And I don't know how long I'm going to be in this business. I hope it's for a long time, but I will tell you this slide alone will be one that I'll carry really for the rest of my career. I mean, just think for a moment, those 500 people of which you saw earlier in their group photo that were over 3.5 GPA collectively. That continues a long streak of us being over 3.0. All our teams are over 3.0 for the first time ever. So I don't need to read all these things, but I think, and I imagine you probably share the pride as being part of this alumni community that the young people who compete here are taking seriously what they should be. And despite all the changes that they had to go through, they certainly stayed committed academically. Of course, that last bullet is really important. Double nickels, as we like to say. 55 student athletes graduated. And as we're seeing more and more kids are getting their master's degree because of some changes of eligibility rules about 8 years ago that allows a lot of our kids to get master's degrees while they're competing. So if you look at the overall year academically on the next slide, again, it's some of the same really impressive accomplishments. And I won't read all those things, but that does represent the fall and the spring. And again, we couldn't be more proud of what that is. Now, I know Kim probably in bullet 4 would be in that 15% group when she was here. Actually, she and I joked the other day that's usually where our gymnasts find themselves in that space because they love, being high on all their scores. But to imagine for a moment that 15% of our population is perfect academically, and it just speaks to so much to their character, their drive, the coaches who know that this is the most important thing, and our incredible academic staff who works with them daily. So I always start here because this is what it's all about. We are not professional athletes here. We are student athletes, and this is our obligation. Now, that being said, we are athletes. And as we look back on the year competitively, I thought we'd talk a little bit about that as well. So on the next slide, you can really see some of our accomplishments that we went through. And obviously, what we saw last year coming out of the gate in the fall was just a fantastic effort by many of our fall teams. Obviously, football gets all the headlines and a lot of the ink. Back-to-back South champions, incredible record, or best all-time record in terms of being in the Pac-12 conference. You can see some of the others. Skiing, of course, was really on their way to winning the national championship again for back-to-back when they got called down the hill and the championship was canceled back in March. The gymnasts were undefeated. They were rolling. We can all predict, but I think they would have been hard to beat, both in the Pac-12 championship that was 2 weeks prior to the shutdown and also nationally. But you can see, I don't know how many people know our volleyball team finished in the top 10 last year. We went down to BYU, 5,000 screaming fans, and we beat them in 3 games. It wasn't even close. Cross country team, again, top 20. So really an incredible year. And then when it was all said and done, up until the time of the shutdown, we were right there in the top 30 overall and in the top 20 position. But to think that we finished in the top 3 in the fall of all our Pac-12 institutions, and we know how profound some of our members in the Pac-12 are in Olympic sports, that was an unbelievable accomplishment. You layer it over the academic success, and you can see Utah is really taking our place and climbing the ladder, both competitively and academically in the conference. So very excited about that, but we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. We have a lot of initiatives. We have a lot of different things that are going on, obviously outside of what our student athletes and coaches are doing. I thought it was important today to update you on the biggest facility project that we're working on. And that, of course, is the Kingarf Performance Zone, which is scheduled to open up at the end of July in 21. Really, really excited about this project. It was a long time planning. My predecessor, Dr. Hill, did a fabulous job turning over the feasibility work to me when I got here 2 years ago. It really made a lot of sense to me. We selling out for almost 11 plus years, over 3,000 accounts on the waiting list. We just needed some more space. Luckily, the Garf family stepped up in a huge way, allowed us to accelerate the project. And as we sit today, we're on time and on budget, which is very important. This will take our new capacity up to 51,000, up from just a little bit over 47. A lot of premium seating will come in. The biggest part of this project really as well is just we'll be able to redo all of the locker room areas and a lot of the training facilities as well. And all of it would be paid for, again, by the models that we have. We've almost sold out of all the product in there, which is really exciting, and it really goes to our fan base and how incredible they are. We can go ahead and look at the next slide. This is another look. Some of you may have seen this image before. You know, these things are not completely accurate in terms of it, but this is about 98% of what it will look like if you're looking down onto it from the upper part of the stadium there. So you can see we'll have a complete ring around the stadium, and you'll be able to walk around on the backside. So finally our concourses will be 360 degrees. We stole a little bit of design features out of the Dallas Cowboys, where our team will actually run out of that bottom club area onto the field, and that'll be a field club that will have about 1,000 people in there. And so we're excited about what this will do for our stadium. You know, a lot of our peers and athletic directors and football coaches in our conference that know about this are frankly terrified. It's already one of the most intimidating stadiums to play. It's one of the loudest stadiums to play, and now you can imagine with it being enclosed what that's going to do. So again, thought I'd update everybody on that particular project. We can go to the next slide. Again, good view. I would say you might notice on the bottom part of the screen there, you can see the Olympic cauldron right next to our ticket office down there. That's been an unbelievable feature of all this. We're moving the cauldron outside of the fence line, so finally the public can go up and see it, and it's being completely refurbished. It's going to be beautiful. We've been working with the Olympic Committee in town to really make sure that it becomes a real, frankly, a top spot to visit if you come to Salt Lake for pictures. It just really needed that. And so really a nice byproduct of all of this. You can't tell here. Matter of fact, it really doesn't probably do it justice, but it will just peek over the top of that stands. And we got a few things up our sleeve that we might have some fun with during football games, and we're still working on that. But this is a good photo, though, that really does show the scope and how far out it will come on there on Fifth Avenue, 5th Street there. So, so excited to show you guys that project, and in light of the virus and in light of everything we're doing, and certainly we'll get into that today further. Been really impressed with Layton Construction, who has just been able to keep all their workers safe during the virus and be able to continue their work as well. Next slide, please. So I guess I'll end this part of the presentation with where I started. You know, everything we do, the support of people that are watching today, your investment in us is all about these young people, their aspirations, their dreams, and we can't be more appreciative of everything that you have done. And I will say, obviously we'll get into the challenges as we all are facing. I'm proud of this group and what they're doing as we head into the choppy waters ahead. We've got about 3/4 of our teams back on campus in volunteer workouts that are being completely restricted by our medical personnel and our trainers, guided by Pac-12 medical guidelines that have been established throughout the summer. We're excited to have them back. They're doing well. Being back in a program and a system has been quite candidly good for their own mental health. And we're excited to be back with them in this new form or fashion, waiting for the next step of what will come. So Kim, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. What a great presentation, but also just so proud of the accomplishments and being a North End Zone season ticket holder. I'll have a new view as I head into that stadium. So in 2021, so very excited for that. Well, today we're really joined by an audience largely made up of you alumni. And so, Mark, I thought the first thing that we could start by doing was addressing a few questions that the alumni have posed to us in that registration, and really speaks to, how the athletics relations with our U alumni, could look in the future. So maybe first off, tell me a little bit about how the athletics department is hoping to engage with our alumni going forward, not just here in, Salt Lake City and the core hub of the university, but also those, out of state, across the country and beyond. Help me understand a little bit.
Well, first of all, I think it's critically important in our role, whether it be coaches, students, and certainly administrators, myself as director, to understand the importance of the support of our alumni. You never take it for granted.
Mhm.
And you understand that in our case in athletics, we serve a big role in the pride of the university, both how we compete, but also, of course, how we handle ourselves in the community, academically, et cetera. But I believe there are so many things that we can do. And I look forward to working not only with you and the staff, but also the alums across the country. How we do that is things that I think we've started to do more of and we can do more of. We understand that when we go on the road, and particularly in football and other sports, there's opportunities. We're there, we have coaches, we have leaders. Establishing more events of that nature, I think, are important. How we communicate, like today, for example, how we're available, how we're accessible, how we're all working toward a common goal. I just think it's critically important. You can't just take it for granted. That's really what it comes down for me. But I can assure you that our department is very committed to doing so.
Awesome, Mark. I think like this idea of a persistent, deliberate partnership between our U alumni and of course, athletics, but other campus groups. And, one thing that comes to mind as that deliberate kind of partnership that happened, about 18 years ago was the MUS, or the Mighty Utah, student section that was founded back in 2002. And really a signature program that really, is that balance between, U athletics, but also U alumni, and really builds that, close, long-lasting relationship. Tell me how this program has been impactful. Tell me a little bit about what maybe the opportunities are to grow this tradition and to be inclusive.
Well, let me tell you how it's impactful from a different lens. It's, being that I've worked at 2 other Pac-12 institutions, it is a nightmare. Come in to Rice-Eccles Stadium and try to think. The whole crowd's into it, but when the MUS gets up and leads that third down cheer, I mean, it changes outcomes. I mean, I can tell you, it changes outcomes. So then I get here, and it's the first questions I want to know, like, how does this start? And then to find out it originated in the alumni relations area with the student, leaderships around alumni. It was such a great thing to understand, and it showed partnership, right? And how we can work together and have a great outcome. It is nationally studied. I go to national meetings and people ask me, what is the deal? Student attendance is declining at other places, but my gosh, you guys, so it's a really point of pride. And again, like I said, an example of when partnership can come together, what can be created. But really, really love that group, the different student leaders I've talked to, and then we challenge them, we ask a lot and we always want more. Our coaches love it. If Wick could tell you, one of the best things about being the coach here, he'll talk about obviously the fan support and then particularly the students. But I also go back to say, I remember in one of my meetings with the MUS leadership, he or she was graduating, both of them were, and they're like, well, how do I get season tickets? You're sold out. And it really was a defining moment for me to green light the expansion. I thought, these young people, we got to get them tickets, right? We got to figure this out. So all of it kind of comes together, but the MUS is fantastic and a critical part of our success.
Awesome, Mark. I couldn't agree more. And I just think about this idea of, allowing students to be engaged while they're students, getting them involved in student life. Then as they graduate, what you just brought up, as they graduate, then they become alumni. Everyone can become alumni and be a part of our U alumni program. And athletics is a big core of that. So that's awesome. The other thing, as I'm thinking about my next question, Mark, really, I think a lot about, the students, our communities in Salt Lake City and beyond, and what people are going through right now. And I think, a lot about that we all recognize that this is really an unprecedented time for our country and really for our local Utah communities and neighborhoods. Given the pandemic, and given the current climate, surfacing around important social justice issues, I was hoping that you could give our audience, some insight about how student athletes at the University of Utah are using their voices to really strengthen, our equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts, creating unity. So help me a little bit there. Give me some insights. Tell me a little bit about what your student athletes are doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. very proud of our student athletes for a lot of different reasons, as I mentioned. About a year ago or so, our student development staff, which is just fabulous, was really listening to our Crimson Council leadership, which consists of 3 student leaders from each of our teams, and they meet regularly, and I meet with them frequently. But about a year or so ago, they really felt like we needed to spend more time on social justice issues. So they created what's called the Utah group. Now it's the Utah group. Back then it was something a little different, but it's changed its name, and that's United Together Against Hate. And that's our student leader group, Utah group, that really has been bringing forward to the leaders, of myself included, about the various different initiatives that we can do and be a part of as we all go through this learning and listening experience regarding social justice. Our students, myself, and many of our coaches were deeply, shocked by George Floyd's death, and it caused a reaction that has been very productive in our department. Our students have participated in the peaceful protests to use their voices, uniting together to really look at our department and things that we can do better, make sure myself, our coaches are more aware of their experiences. And the learning for me personally has really been almost life-changing. And it's something we've all agreed that we're going to continue to focus on. Ruth Watkins brought in Marianne Villarreal about a year and a half ago as the Senior VP for Equity and Diversity. And she's been a phenomenal leader in working with me personally, her team working with my team to think of other different things that we can do. We've got a very diverse group of student athletes here. And, they come from all over. And my job is to make sure they're incredibly comfortable and that they feel safe. And that they're listened to, but they also know they have a big platform here. And so we want to work collectively together to help our community learn more. So we have a lot of things going on. Our conference is really taking a leadership role, bringing our kids together this summer in the various 12 institutions. And so you're going to see a lot more outcomes from us on this. And it's something that it's got our key focus.
Awesome, Mark. I think, as, a mom of 2 little children and who really look up to, sports figures, to university athletes, student athletes, I think they have a big voice. And I remember that as a student athlete, being able to participate in, integral programs that, helped our community as well to grow and become united. So kind of a little bit of a goosebumps moment for me, because I think I have a lot to learn. I know I have a lot to stand up and make some change the way that I can and the way that I can influence. So thank you for that reminder, Mark. I appreciate it. Maybe switching gears just a little bit, Mark, as you can imagine, we received a lot of questions in advance of our discussion today. I know you alumni are really thinking a lot about our student athletes and what they're going through in light of these unprecedented times. And also, really, what does, a season look like, going into the fall? So Mark, I was hoping to maybe put you in the hot seat a little bit and what might fans and you alumni and, our communities at large really expect, as we're coming up on the upcoming seasons and schedule for fall sports like women's soccer, volleyball, like you mentioned, their top 10 finish, and football. Help us a little bit understand what that's going to look like and set our expectations for us.
Yeah. You depending on what side of the mask issue anyone is, and really there should only be one side, we should wear a mask. There is an advantage for the athletic director in town that I can go shop and put the mask on and people don't ask me about football. But I say the thing about masks because, for us to be able to get going in let's say football and start, our numbers are just going to have to get better in our 12 schools and where they reside. We're just going to have to see better results. That's just really no other way of saying that. And one thing people can do is to stop the spread. And I think we're learning that masks are the key thing. So that's a little bit of a plea, if I could. It's been unbelievable to go through this whole summer, right? If you go back to the spring when literally all our kids were competing and we were going and everything just stopped, right? And everyone that follows us knows that was a traumatic moment for a fan, but imagine, if you will, for students. So our spring got washed away, the end of the winter sports, gymnastics and other skiing, as I mentioned. And now we're in this new dynamic where I remember back in March, I thought, well, at least we got time before fall goes. And here we are in August. And so, obviously, I can tell you what we have today. And what we have today was announced last Friday. We know we're going to start our competitions in the fall on September 26th, and volleyball and soccer will also start that weekend. Football will start on the road. That's all out there, and people can go to our website and in athletics and other places and see that. The great thing about the football schedule, it's built to be flexible. It's built to move down later in the season if we have a situation where a team or two can't go. We have common buys. And so I give a lot of credit to our conference and to our football working group and our head coaches and others who kind of came up with a very flexible, giving us the best possible chance. My hope is that we can play that schedule. And we just don't know today if we're going to be able to do that. So today, where we're at with our teams, football is in what we call our 20-hour CARA time, which means they're with their coaches 20 hours a week, primarily in strength and conditioning, video review, and now since this last Monday, for the first time, actually out on the field and walkthrough. Non-physical contact, still a lot of social distancing and all of that. Incredibly careful. I'm just so proud of our training staff and our kids, most importantly, and coaches doing all the right things. So we're going in on this like we're going to go. We got a game in Pullman coming up in late September, and that's our plan. It's the same with soccer. It's the same with volleyball, and of course cross country as well. So, the biggest challenge is just keeping the kids going, right? Because they're like you, and they're like folks watching, that things change. I mean, the one thing I've learned as a leader, and I'm sure everybody's like, you just got to be able to adapt to change. I mean, it's an unbelievable situation. I mean, I can think of 2 weeks ago, the football schedule looked this way, and then we changed it like the night before, right? I mean, it's constantly changing. And I think, quite candidly, the folks that emerge from this, and if you just get it from a competitive standpoint, the folks that emerge from this are the ones that have been able to adapt to the change, been able to work with their students the best to get them through it, keep their confidence up, keep their spirits up, and whenever it's time to go, that group will be ready to go. I wish I had more definitive answers, but at least right now, with the schedules out, people can plan and see when we're coming. My hope is that we can stick to it.
Right. Mark, it's so hard. I think when we were talking previously, I let you in that I'm a healthcare professional myself. And so I can see some very similar parallels in the healthcare industry right now, as we're trying to be nimble, but also use best practices and listen to our medical experts, right? And help us do the right thing for all of the people that we serve. So I really appreciate that. And I also, I'm glad you were able to kind of highlight the mask up movement. I think that's a key strategy for us to be able to be successful going into the future. So wholeheartedly support that. Along that same vein, tell us a little bit about how the student athletes are, really training right now. How are they training differently compared to previous years? Are there more individual workouts, or, do they have to work out on their own at home, or less training? Help us understand a little bit.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to know that they really went through that period from March until we were allowed to start bringing them back on a volunteer basis about a month ago. They had to really, for the first time since they've been with us, really kind of keep training on their own. And some of the videos the kids were sending in were phenomenal, man. We had linebackers pushing trucks up hills. I mean, we had some unbelievable stuff going on. We kept having to say, hey guys, let's take care of ourselves here. But everyone was trying in every way. So then they come back, and I know Coach Witt mentioned to me how impressed he was of just how in shape his guys were. They took it all seriously, and that's to all our teams too. I think of women's soccer the same way, on and on. So now what they're in is this period where, again, it's very limited in football right now. And I should say the other sports really on August 15th, they'll start kind of coming back as a team. The volunteer workouts, they're very separated, and they're very away from each other. We're doing a lot of outdoor training. We moved a lot of our strength and conditioning equipment outdoors. And again, they like it. They love it when they came back. They like it now, but now they're like, I want to go with my teammates. They're trained this way. So we're just having to constantly remind that this is the way we're going to do it. But again, it also speaks to the challenges ahead, right? So in the case of football, the next big date is the 16th of August, 2 weeks from this last Monday, where kind of that's permissive contact practice. And I think for us to get there, we'll have to continue to work with our Pac-12 medical group, our presidents and chancellors and CEOs and ADs, et cetera, et cetera. Are we ready to take this step? Do we feel like everything we've done to this point is putting everybody in the safest possible position? And it's one of the reasons why we went with a league-only schedule, is what we could work together collectively. We could fight it out if we needed to. We come to an agreement. And that's one of the reasons why we did that. But the kids are, they're effective training. Believe me, these facilities here and these strength coaches and trainers are second to none in the country. So they're doing well.
Wonderful. I know it's hard, and it's one of those things that, like you said before, it's about being nimble, using best practices. And I know we're just really excited to cheer on our student athletes going into the future. So that's really exciting. As we talk about student athletes today, what about the next generation, Mark? Help us a little bit. How has the pandemic really affected, recruiting for that next generation of athletes that are coming through, maybe for the 2021 or 2022 seasons, for all sports? What's going on that's different nowadays?
Yeah. Well, the big difference is we have been on what's called a recruiting dead period now since March. And in essence, what that means is there has not been a coach in the country allowed to get on an airplane and go see anybody in any sport that we sponsor in the NCAA. And the dead period keeps getting extended. And I think right now it's all the way out to the end of September. So what does that mean? Well, like this forum and Zoom, thank goodness that our coaches are able to use technology to see prospects. We're blessed to be in this league, and the student athletes that we tend to get are very elite in their sport, and they can't really hide from us. We know where they're at. But I do know, because I have friends whose children are being recruited or maybe aren't at a Pac-12 type level. It's a maddening experience to add to all the other maddening things that one's dealing with, that coaches aren't able to go to showcase events and they're not able to see certain things. So it's just another kind of a frustrating element for folks that have been so aspirational, children and young adults, to come into the NCAA space. But I know everyone's trying to use the technology that we can. I told a group the other night, that as parents, videotaping and working with your high school coaches and working with folks that are around you, send that stuff in. It's being viewed, it's being seen by folks at our level. But again, I want to put a plug in for University of Utah coaches. They have not stopped recruiting. I can assure you of that. The dead period does not allow you to not get on the phone or have certain type of social media technology, and they're working hard. We cannot rest here. We have to move forward, and we need great kids, care about graduating and want to compete, and we're not going to stop in those efforts.
That's awesome, Mark. I remember back to that recruiting period myself. During high school, it's really impressionable time for many, high schoolers. And I think we as athletes always have, our step-by-step plan of exactly how things are going to work. And so I think for us, I'm really hopeful. I won't tell anybody how long ago that was, but we didn't have, these same capabilities, and pandemic, 20-ish years ago would have been maybe a different outcome. So I just am so thankful, even in healthcare, like I mentioned, thinking outside the box, thinking differently, but doing it in a safe manner is I just commend you and all of your coaches and athletes for what they're doing. I also want to do a call out to our own U alumni. I mean, our community is over 240,000 strong. We have, taken away dues from our U alumni program. So everybody that graduates from the University of Utah is now a part of our alumni group. I want to kind of call out our alumni, and I think we had some questions about, what can our alumni community do for student athletes? How do we support them, during these difficult times? And are there key things that we can be thinking about to support the athletics community at large?
Well, I appreciate the question. And of course, so many of our Crimson Club members, of which we're approaching over 9,000 plus members, are members of the alumni community. And so start with thanking all of you that do contribute to the scholarship efforts of our student athletes. That type of donation goes obviously to their scholarship. It goes to the support system. I remember when I got here, there was a real need to add another mental health specialist, for example. We had one full-time and some interns, and we were able to add two, because again, the Crimson Club numbers, as mentioned earlier, have gone up. And so that's the kind of stuff that's so impactful. So that's really the key thing. I think I think if we think the pandemic in larger, I just think the students itself. I mean, if we look, we're a few weeks away from campus starting, and the president and her team have put together such a thoughtful plan to bring back our students. Some will go virtually, some will be on campus, and all of that. So I just think for the alumni in general, outside of our group, is just be really thoughtful of the students that are coming in this fall. I mean, my gosh, has there ever been a different student group coming into an institution? The freshmen, reach out to students. Those of you that are in town, you see a UU student, how you doing? I went through it. It's awesome. Fight through this. It's going to be great. Trust your leaders. I think that kind of thing is really important. Empathy right now is really big. So I would say, Kim, I think probably as an alum, I would say beyond our student athletes, just to the whole student body, they're going to need some shoulders to go through this. It's going to be awesome, and we're going to get through this. And this campus is so ready to roll. Can't wait for everyone to get back that's able to come back. But I think they're going to need a shoulder every now and then.
Yeah, great point, Mark. I think that partnership, unity, collaboration, and just being kind to one another, I think is something that I try and tell my two children, like I mentioned. And I think it's just something that we can do better at every day. How can we improve? So well took. And I would just encourage our U alumni, that is another key area for us as U alumni to build up our students, to support them in scholarship, and really help mentor and maybe connect and network them with people so that they have a leg up. That's a key point for us, and a key point for me as president as we move in to the next few years. So great. I'm going to take a direct question from one of our U alumni members, actually out in Georgia. One of their questions was that they don't get much of the University of Utah news out in Georgia. And in their own words, Mark, when they turn on the TV, they have to put up with a lot of SEC and ACC TV coverage. I'm wondering if you can maybe help us out a little bit here. What's the best way for our alumni who live across the country and beyond to really participate in watching our teams? What can they do? And especially if they don't have that Pac-12, network in their region, how can we help them out?
Well, I appreciate the question. And, I'm not going to be one to suggest anyone should find the cable system or the mechanism to find the Pac-12 network, because obviously if folks, could do that, I think they would. I do know that in this last year, the conference has really increased distribution. I mean, Apple TV, for example, this year became a partner. And if you can get it, it's fabulous. I mean, it's really, I think, the best of the networks, really, particularly on the Olympic sport coverage. It's really helped the Pac-12 really in a lot of different ways when it comes to the Olympic sports. But I'm also not naive to some of the frustrations that its delivery is not as robust as it should be. So, I do think that part of that's on us, right? We need to continue here in Utah athletics to continue to distribute outbound in all ways possible our video content on our website, delivering it through, again, partnership mechanisms through the Alumni Association, and not just keep everything here, spread it out to everywhere. I think our communication staff is one of the best in the league. We get creative awards all the time. I mean, we have, I think, the brightest woman in the business running our football Twitter handle, and she is unbelievable. And she's doing some special things. So I encourage you guys to follow those things. I think it's a real good insight into us. I will say from a long-term perspective, we've got about 4 more years left in our current television deal within the conference. We are already beginning to think about what the next step needs to look like, and how we want to make sure that we're broadly presented, at the same time keeping our finances where it needs to be because of all of those things, and even increase that. So more to come, but in the meantime, I think there are different ways to find the network. Reach out to us, we can help you find the network, but I appreciate that someone in Georgia is watching that closely. Tell Georgia Tech to call me back. I'm trying to do a home and home with them. That'll help. We'll come right to you.
Sounds like a plan, Mark. We'll see what we can do to influence that for you. But and I just want to commend you. I think in the last few years, I've just loved being able to sit on my couch, and be able to watch the University of Utah Red Rocks as they go out on the road. And for women's gymnastics, that is something that hadn't been done before. And I just want to commend the athletics department, obviously the Red Rocks coaches and others in the Pac-12 for making this a priority and allowing our thousands of fans in gymnastics to be able to see a women's sport out on the road. That's really cool. So just want to say thank you.
Well, and just real quick, I appreciate that real quick. And that was some of the give and get in this TV deal 10 years ago, not to spend too much time on this, but the conference presidents and CEOs and ADs at the time really believed that what you just said was the most important thing. So we agreed to do 850 live events. We wanted our student athletes across this incredible conference, gymnastics and softball, et cetera, to have exposure. And that's not how it is in the ACC. And that's not how it is. We have put ourselves out there, and it costs money to do that. But the return of that is just a really broad-based exposure of our conference. And it's really helped in recruiting.
Awesome. And I know the fans love it. So thanks, Mark. Well, Mark, we're getting towards the end of our kind of discussion today. And I just wanted to kind of take the liberty as the moderator over the last hour to, really ask that final question, if that's okay with you. I just wanted to kind of let you know, but also let the University of Utah alumni know the little secret that I was actually on the team when the flashing the block U was really invented by gymnast Melissa Vitoy and also one of our Uber fans, John Birkinshaw. And really it was a way for Melissa and John to really help her connect with her family who couldn't always be there to support her on the competition floor. And I think about that iconic symbol, and I really think about how that's a symbol for Melissa, for athletes, for students, and beyond. And I also think about how that's really that unifying symbol that brings us all together over the last decade or two, as I divulge my little secret. But, as you work with the student athletes of this generation, what's going to be that symbol? What's going to be that action or group or thing that's going to have the same unifying effect for our university going into the future? Anything that you can give us a little bit of insight on?
Well, there's one thing that my father in particular taught me early on in life: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the flashing the U is so ingrained. Thanks, and it was great to hear that backstory. It's so ingrained in not only the University of Utah, but particularly in our athletic department. And we know this generation is different from the group 5 years ago and 5 years ago, but this has stood the test of time. And wherever we go, it's getting off buses. I can think of our players getting off buses, and it's just what we do. What we do on the mountain and how we turn that red. We turned it red a lot last year. We're real proud of that. But that stood the test of time, and that's a tribute to you guys and others that have done it. Our traditions are very, very important to us, and that's one that we will not mess with.
Good point, Mark. I appreciate it. And maybe can I ask you to flash the U with me? We'll see if we can maybe get a picture at the same time. But
I'd be honored to.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Well, Mark, hey, thanks for your dedication to our student athletes and to the University of Utah at large. I know this is an incredibly busy time for you, and I really appreciate your time, talking with us and with our listeners. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, Kim, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time with us. It's our honor to be here. And, I will say, I know many of our alums are wondering about watching our kids this year. And we're working on all those kind of plans. And we don't have them finalized yet. We know some of our games have been moved later in the year. So look for that. And we'll work with not only our own messaging systems, but we'll work within the Alumni Association to make sure our alums are aware. Gosh, my hope is that we can have people cheering on our kids. First, that they can compete, and then second, that our great alums and supporters can come out and watch them compete. So be on the lookout for that. But really, thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate everybody that's watching and listening today. And I know there might be other questions, and we'll continue to try to address things as we go forward. But ask everyone to be patient, hang in there with us, but we'll be ready to roll when it's time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your time.
You bet.